Hello and welcome to the Diamond Report for Wednesday, January 18th, 2017. This is your host, Doug Diamond. Well, 56 years ago, yesterday actually, the 17th, President Eisenhower gave a farewell address in which he mentioned the military-industrial complex, also known as the deep state or the shadow government. Let's take a couple minutes and just listen to a little bit of what he had to say.
So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together. Akin to and largely responsible for the sweeping changes in our industrial military posture has been the technological revolution during recent decades. In this revolution, research has become central. It also becomes more formalized, complex, and costly. A steadily increasing share is conducted for, by, or at the direction of the federal government. Today, the solitary inventor, tinkering in his shop, has been overshadowed by task forces of scientists in laboratories and testing fields. In the same fashion, the free university, historically the fountainhead of free ideas and scientific discovery, has experienced a revolution in the conduct of research. Partly because of the huge costs involved, a government contract becomes virtually a substitute for intellectual curiosity.
So he touches on a number of things there. One of the things that, to me, that's very glaring is that he talks about an alert and knowledgeable citizenry. And if you think about it, today we have neither. Our citizenry is more asleep than ever. I think this would be Eisenhower's nightmare, because that is what has allowed the shadow government, the deep state, the military-industrial complex to take over. And that's exactly what's happened. Our citizenry has gone asleep at the wheel, and we have no idea who's even driving. So you take that into context of people not caring what's going on, and then multiply the other factors of being bombarded constantly from all directions by things like chemtrails, geoengineering, what we're breathing in, fluoride in the water and on food that we eat, GMO food that we eat, vaccines. I mean, there's so many things that is coming at us to dumb us down, to keep us from caring, and then our lifestyles are so busy today that we don't have time to care about things, which is why I'm trying to make a slight little dent in this whole mess with this little show. So thank you, President Eisenhower, for your wise words. Okay, let's jump on into our earthquake forecast. The feed that I've got pulled up here is Dutchsinse's forecast feed. It's not quakes. We're not looking at quakes here that have happened, but these are ones that he has forecast. And I just wanted to go back to this and sort of reiterate what he said and then what's happened thus far. So what we've got here is he's forecasting a 6.8 off the coast of Northern California, Southern Oregon, in the Gorda Escarpment area. And then he's also forecasting these magnitude 5.0 to 5.1 to 5.8 in South America and Central America. And then he also forecast a Italian quake at 4.9. We'll come back to that in a second. And then let me turn these rings down. He's also forecast, we covered this a couple days ago, 6.3 in the Nepal region, 7.9. He originally had an 8.3 over here on Kyushu region of Japan, the southern area of Japan. And then the big one was the 8.3 to 9.3 that he said was going to happen in Indonesia. Now, keeping all that in mind, and if you saw the show prior to this one, the Diamond Report prior to this one, we covered that in more detail. So let's go over to Dutch's last video that he made last night, early this morning, and let's get a feel for what he says has not happened yet and may not happen. So let's just jump right into that video.
Hello, everybody. It is 10 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday, January 17th, 2017, 1/17/2017. Welcome into the Earthquake 3D live stream, where we daily recap seismic events around the planet, and we issue semi-daily and weekly earthquake forecasts for new areas to be on watch for noteworthy earthquake activity. And if, for those of you who are new in here, we welcome in, of course, to the chat rooms. We've got people in Twitch, we've got people on YouTube. Really good to see everybody in here. Also, moderators, everybody, thanks for doing a good job and trying to keep it somewhat civil in the different chat rooms. Oh man, it's a challenge in itself. So guys, well, here we are. We have to acknowledge the big giant fail in the room, and of course I'm talking about the lack of large earthquake activity developing out in our areas that were warned. Now, if you aren't familiar with what I'm talking about here, let me bring up a feed that will show you the areas where we warned, and we're going to compare the areas where we warned versus the areas that were actually hit. So, let's get them up on the screen here. This is a feed provided to me by MC Player and Squeaks. Now, there's an earthquake down here at Antarctica. We can take that off. That's a test earthquake, but you're going to see some really large earthquakes marked on the map here. And of course, we have an 8.3 to 9.3 marked here at Sumatra, Indonesia. Secondly, our second larger earthquake we have marked off the coast of Kyushu, Japan, South Japan. We have a 7.9 up to 8.3. Also, additionally, we had a 6.8 marked off the coast of California. And we had a 5.8 marked in red here that was issued. This was all 7 days ago when I issued this warning. Now, why did I issue a warning 7 days ago? Well, if we can go back and consult the last month's worth of deep earthquakes. I'll preface this in case you're new here and you're wondering what I'm going to get ready to go into. I'm going to be fully tearing apart what I warned for and the epic fail that it has become this week so far since we issued a 7-day warning 7 days ago. Now, why did I issue a warning 7 days ago? First, you got to understand why I issued the warning, right? Take a look at the center of the screen. There's a very large earthquake here on the screen. This is a deep 7.3 that happened down below the Philippines. Now, you got to understand something about the 7.3. When it struck, we were expecting it to strike. I had issued a 72-hour watch for the Philippines to be on watch for a upper 7. And then a mid-range 7 hit. They downgraded it to 7.3. So Philippines got hit as expected. Well, whenever we see deep earthquakes like this, normally, when they're in the 4 and 5.0 range and 6.0 range, they cause shallower, larger earthquakes. So when this 7.3 came on the map, it prompted me to get on immediately and tell all my viewers who are also watching, thousands of people watching this, that they also watch for these deep earthquakes to cause shallower, larger earthquakes. It's a premise and principle that's actually been quoted by people like Suspicious Observers, for instance. Benjamin Davidson quotes it all the time with this. He calls it blot echoes. I think he just got it quoted in a paper. He says that deep earthquakes cause shallower, larger earthquakes in his paper. So it's not just me that says that. I'm just giving you an example that other people use the deep earthquake causing shallow earthquake methodology to try and forecast areas for earthquakes to strike. So, that being said, I issued a warning and it failed epically. And I mean, it hasn't hit. So, I want to take you guys back 2 weeks' time now. We're going to go back 2 weeks when I issued a previous warning and I had told you guys, well, look, we're going to have to watch just a few days beyond what we issued the warning for, and we'll take it down to what I'm calling an earthquake watch. Now, the difference between a warning and a watch is tremendous. In weather, the difference between a warning and a watch is life and death. Okay, so they will issue watches for like a severe thunderstorm or a tornado watch that covers an entire region, like 5 or 8 states. But then the tornado warning comes into effect when there is, let's say, a tornado spotted by a trained professional, and then a warning goes out for a small little section of a county as opposed to a multi-statewide area. So what I'm going to say here now is, since the warning time has expired, you can tell the people that you warned in Japan and in Indonesia and on the West Coast that the warning is over. And the earthquakes we were looking for did not strike. However, just like if there was a severe weather warning that was out, let's say a tornado has formed and touched down on the ground somewhere, in the United States is a perfect example, or a severe thunderstorm, that after that goes away, after that tornado goes away, you're still under a watch for a little while after the storm, usually a few hours. Well, in this case, since we're dealing with the biggest, largest earthquake I've ever seen, and since I don't have anything else to base this upon, that's also something that's a qualifying factor for me here on this, even though I struck out, is that there is one qualifier, that we hadn't seen any other large, deep earthquakes like this before for me to base any activity upon. So it is kind of a shot in the dark on this large, deep 7.3 that set this all into motion. Set all what into motion? Now, this is maybe another mitigating factor in why there wasn't a large earthquake when we see the number of earthquakes that struck this week in the 5.0 range. So take a look at it. Since the big, deep earthquake over in the West Pacific, centered around it, literally spreading out in both directions around the planet, in both directions, 5.0 and 6.0 earthquakes. Now, could it be that the deep 7.0 that set this all into motion pushed the whole plate instead of just one area? Instead of fracturing in one area with an 8.3 to 9.3, which I was looking for right here. Here, maybe I should turn the rings down so you can see how this is really centered around the area. So you see this? Our big, deep earthquake was right here in what's called the Celebes Sea, or Celebes Sea, or Celebes Sea. And on both sides, going out all the way over to Madagascar, and all the way over to Fiji, and up to Japan, 5.0 range earthquakes. And they're all the same size. Like every one of them is like a cluster of 5 to 5.2 to 5.5, with 6s mixed over to the east. And that was the first part of the forecast, that we would see 6s develop over to the east this week, and that happened. But since then, what we were looking for has not occurred. And since the big one didn't hit over here, guess what? Japan didn't hit. And since Japan didn't hit, guess what? West Coast still didn't hit. It's like, it would be like a set of dominoes where one doesn't fall, the others after don't fall. Or Rube Goldberg. You guys ever see those? Okay. They do make them in physics. Okay. Well, again, you miss one and the rest of the chain does not follow as expected. And that's exactly what happened. So it's a complete bottom out strikeout for the forecast. Now, the methodology, I'm sticking to it. We've seen it happen enough that deep earthquakes cause shallower, larger earthquakes. In this case, it could very well be that the deep 7.3 displaced everything from Japan to Fiji over west to Sumatra and caused all these swarms of 5.0s, and that's all it will do. But it's an earthquake forecast miss. For me, complete miss. 100%. And not just there, but up in Japan and over on the West Coast. So I'm canceling the warnings, and I'm taking them down to a 3-day watch at the most. So we'll watch for 3 more days, but you can tell the people that live there, look, I'm just watching. Guy on YouTube, cancel the warning. He's just watching just in case for forecast methodology, in case it's taking a few days longer. You have to understand that I put a 7-day watch time period on this. As a human, I assign 7-day watch for this and that area because that's what I think is going to happen within that 7-day time period. But with the deep earthquake that hit, what if it takes 8 days? Just because I said it was going to take up to 7 and it might hit on day 8. Now, there's going to be a certain time where you get beyond a time frame where it's going to be an acceptable limit for that. So I would maybe put it additional 2 days, maybe 3 at the most. And if we get beyond 2 to 3 days beyond what I'm looking for, then it's complete miss, not just taking it out of the watch, but then it coming out of the watch and it doesn't hit, it's a complete miss. And then that makes me go back to the drawing board to redevelop the methodology on everything that strikes above 7. Now, we know from past experience, hundreds of examples, that 4.0s, 5.0s, and 6.0 earthquakes, when they're deep, cause shallower, larger earthquakes.
All right, so there you have the reasons why his forecast was the way it was. It was all based on that very deep 7.3 quake that happened a while back now, and that sort of set everything into motion. You can see how it's a domino effect. That very large, deep earthquake would normally translate into an even larger, shallower earthquake, which is why he had the Indonesian quake in at 8.3 to 9.3. And then that's the first domino in the chain reaction. And because that didn't happen, neither did the other things down the chain, like the Japanese quake and the quake off the coast of Northern California. So those things are all tied together, and they have not happened yet, but he is leaving the warning open for a couple more days. So we'll see what happens. Let's hope it doesn't happen, because an 8 to 9.3 anywhere is going to completely devastate the area that it's in if it's on land. If it's out to sea, it's going to cause a tsunami. The 7.0 range and lower isn't really going to cause a tsunami. It might cause a small wave to hit somewhere, but that's not enough to do any damage. When you get into the 8 point something to 9 point something, you can talk about a very large wave hitting somewhere. So let's hope he is wrong on this, and his accuracy rate is still very good. He was wrong on this one so far, but we're going to watch for a couple more days and just see what happens. We had a question after the last show as to what is causing these earthquakes. Are they man-made? Are they natural? He sort of explains it in this little clip that we just watched. I would say they are pretty much always natural as far as what he is predicting, because if they were man-made, they would be more random and harder to get a handle on as to why they're happening and where. And he's very good about picking out a location and a time frame and the magnitude that will happen, which tells me that it's natural occurrences. It's not man-made. 99.999% of them are not man-made. Can they make an earthquake? Yes, they can. They can use HAARP. They can use there's other methodology that they can use to create earthquakes. But primarily, these earthquakes are natural quakes. And now there are different reasons that they may be happening. Some of it is just the push and pull between the earth and the sun. And, there are other issues as well. Thermal expansion in the ocean. The oceans are warming exponentially. That can also cause earthquakes. But again, you're talking about more natural situations versus a man-made weapon system like a HAARP or something like that. So hopefully that will answer your question. Okay, so just as an example of what I'm talking about, here's a situation where he got one right. And I had mentioned Italy earlier. Coming back to it, this is what he'd forecast, a 4.9 in this area of central Italy. And let's go look at the Italian feed, and we'll see that in this area of Italy, and go back just a little bit in time here, you will see that just to the southeast of where he had forecast, a 5.0 has hit. And we can go over and look at the Italian feed information here, and this is where it hit, near Pizzoli. So you can see there that, several days out, he had forecast a 4.9 to hit central Italy, and indeed, a 5.0 did hit. Okay, so we'll just we'll watch the earthquake situation, and we'll just have to sort of notate what happens and just see. And that's enough time spent on earthquakes for this show. Let me jump over into some news. One of the things I wanted you to see was this DAPL cops open fire on prayer circle with rubber bullets and shoot water protectors in the back. And I had my reservations about that until I went to the story to look at it. And there is a clip in here. I won't play any of it, but if you go over here to the page where the article is, if you scroll down here to these videos and you watch this bottom one, you can see it happening. They have it on film. So anyway, if you want to read more about it, there's this article here. I posted it on my Facebook page. Getting back into the inauguration, some recent headlines: inaugural rioters urged to go hard and in their only chance to rove the city under protocol of the Obama era. We'll see if that happens. Obviously, they're trying to gin up as much support for rioting, causing trouble, anything they can do to make it miserable for any people that are there to celebrate Trump. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on Friday. We're only a couple of days out now. Feel free to make up your own punchlines on this one. Protester tries setting himself on fire at Trump's D.C. hotel. He says, "We have a dictator that's been elected. I tried to set myself on fire as an act of protest." If you want to see a dictator, take a look at Barack Hussein Obama. There is a dictator. Donald Trump hasn't done anything to become a dictator, at least not yet. And then even Rand Paul doubles down and says someone needs to go to jail for the fake Trump leaks. And I said, but they won't. If the leaks were against anyone else on the whole planet, somebody would go to jail. That's pretty true. You know, if these leaks had happened against Hillary Clinton, whoever did it would already be in prison or dead. So that's what we're looking at. You can do and say anything you want about Donald Trump. It doesn't matter. If you want to kill him, it's your right to say that. It's your free speech. You can put up Facebook pages. You can tweet about it. You can do anything you want. But if it's anyone else, you can't do it. And they will come arrest you for it, or they'll certainly come knocking on your door. So let's take a look at this one too. DC is in a full-scale panic setting on the eve of the Trump presidency. The establishment is freaking out over Trump, and he could actually drain the swamp. We'll see if that happens. I'm dubious about it. I'm not sure how much he's going to be able to get done. I do think he wants to drain the swamp, but some of the people he's already nominated for certain positions are highly questionable. You've got some Goldman Sachs people and others that, to me, are more part of the swamp than actually, draining the swamp. So we'll see what happens. Some of those people won't get confirmed. Others will. But maybe they've agreed somehow in some other backroom deals or something with him to not follow some of the protocols that they've been doing before. I don't know. I mean, he was the guy who was famous for being on TV saying you're fired. So maybe he is going to give these people one shot and then fire them if they're not. I don't know. So we'll just see what happens. All right, one more quick little story here. I didn't want this video to be too long, so I just wanted to bring your attention to this. I found this yesterday and did watch the video. It's under 12 minutes if you have the time to watch it. This is a new Netflix series called Santa Clarita Diet, starring Drew Barrymore, who I guess is also a Satanist. I didn't realize that. But most of Hollywood is, so it doesn't surprise me. Santa Clarita, of course, is a town, a city in California. And Santa, if you look at that from a Latin perspective, Santa Clarita, Santa means saint. Clarita means glory. But Santa, the word, can also be twisted and turned around into Satan. So I think they're trying to glorify Satan in this particular series. And then when you realize what's happening in the series, you will be appalled. So if you really want to be grossed out, watch this short little video. I would suggest that you do not watch the series. Who knows what sort of evil that will send directly through your eyeballs and into your spirit. But this series, the whole goal of it seems to be to normalize the thought of and eventually the action of cannibalism, eating human flesh. That's what this show's about. Totally sick. Okay, well, that's going to do it for the Diamond Report for today. And I just purchased the domain name TheDiamond.Report. So if you type that into your address bar on your browser, you can go to my current page is only a YouTube playlist, so it's going to give you the playlist of all these shows. So if you go to TheDiamond.Report, there's no .com, .org, .net, none of that. The .report is the top level domain, okay? So just TheDiamond.Report, and it will take you to my YouTube playlist that's going to have all these shows on it as I add them. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.